I don't know if we already are. We might be. Meeting is now live. All right. We are live. Hello, if you are tuning in, this is the live Big Miracle Energy Patreon discussion. We have this the third Sunday of every month. And then if you're familiar with this channel, Constantine, a friend of mine, and I go live 2 other times a month. And then the other Sunday, the first Sunday, we are live privately in a Zoom call just through the Big Miracle Energy Patreon Right-Minded Thinkers. So if you want to be a part, please sign up. Today we have a really intimate group. It's me, Tommy. Say hi, Tommy.
Hi.
And Patrick. Maybe because it's Father's Day, maybe because everybody's at the beach today. I don't know. So yeah, we were kind of chatting before we came on here that topics that were coming up were special relationships as well as success. And I think both of those, at least for me, topics have come up a lot lately. The special relationships, I just did the video on it for the chosen. And then success has been a really big discussion in the Lighthouse group. Because I think what I have found is that it's like your North Star, but it's almost like a hidden North Star in a way. I know we talk about success a lot and like, what does success mean to you? But it's always very like siloed, I think. So a lot of times it's like, what does success in business mean to you? What does success in life mean to you? I feel like those are like usually when our conversations are happening, like, what's your success in friendship or relationship, instead of like the whole, like, what is your success here in general? And I think that's like the truest North Star, and dependent on that depends the success in all the different areas of your life. But I think we just get too siloed, and that makes sense to me because the ego always wants to like make everything chaotic. So why not have like 50 definitions of success in all different areas of your life that are different, so that you're constantly chasing a carrot everywhere? Yeah, and I think ultimately like the real goal is there is no success, but we're talking about success today. So yeah, for me, I think where I'm at for success is remembrance. And just really being unwavering in that, and unwavering in truth, and my unwavering in remembrance. I think that is success. And every day, if I continue on the journey of unwinding to remembrance, and I'm unwavering in any interaction with people outside of me, but also within myself, then that was a day of success for me. And I think if at the end of my lifetime here, whether I lay my body aside and I'm enlightened, or I have to transition into a new body, if I did those things, and had them as at the forefront of my intention every day, I would feel successful, because it's all from love. So that means if I'm doing those things, then I'm living unconditionally in a place of love, or attempting to, doing the things. So I don't know. I almost kind of confused myself in answering that question, but because it's simple, like I wanted to make it this like complicated. Yes, if I impact the world and work with hundreds of individuals and build this empire and make big miracle energy a massive thing, then I'm successful. But like, that's not like the case anymore. All it takes is one. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? I kind of went straight into success, but
I'll go ahead and go again. For me, it's basically just living in the moment and listening to spirit to guide me to make my decisions that are immediately happening, or 5 minutes from now, or like years from now. And that's all I can do, because I don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow or weeks later. So it's pretty basic. And when I find myself listening to the ego and just trying to fulfill ego gratification, that's, to me, is not success. So I try to keep it as basic as possible. But yeah, growing up, I had these visions of accomplishing X, Y, and Z, and slowly I had like goals of, going to Olympics, being a runner, and those didn't happen. And then other goals, and I accomplished some goals, going to college and getting a good job. So some things were getting checked off, some weren't. And I just realized it was like, well, there's no reason of trying to, you can have goals, but realizing that some of them aren't going to happen, it's nothing you can do about it. And listening to spirit, like, is the only thing that to me is success at this point in my day life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're all on the same page about
Yeah.
that, right? Is
Are
the
you going to steal
success
our definition of success?
is following spirit. But I think my definition of success is to enjoy every moment, but it's not a conscious enjoyment. It's almost like a spiritual enjoyment, because my dad has always been fixated on do what you enjoy, or do what you're guided to do. Don't stick in and force yourself to do things you don't want to, or force yourself to go into pathways that make you successful in society's eyes, or whatever you set your goal for yourself. Don't fixate on that. Just enjoy it. So I really resonate with that, especially because after I got into a relationship, I kind of shifted that view to the more ego achievement side of things, rather than coming back to just, I guess, inner peace being the focus and presence being the focus. It was always the next thing and the next thing. What can I do tomorrow to be better, or to get closer to my definition of success?
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well, I think you said that beautifully, because ultimately, yeah, we're all saying leaning into spirit, right? We're just using different words. And as you listen to spirit, it is those moments of just leaning into the joy, the spark, doing what makes you, or not makes you, because nothing makes you, but what brings joy. What do you feel joyful about doing? And that can change from minute to minute. And I think that rocks most people's definition of success if they see a person constantly changing and not staying put and staying concrete on the course of, this is my career, or this is my relationship, or this is where I'm living. But there's certain areas we've started to let into the world, right? Like nomads and travelers. Now that's something that people are jealous of, and kind of, you're looked up upon, or not up upon, is that a word? Whatever, you're looked up to, if that's what you're doing. But in the past, that would be seen as not stable. Why would you want to do that? You're not stable. You don't have consistency. You don't have predictability. But truly, I think as we're unwinding the mind, and I think it's a testament to all of us sharing what success means to us and it being so similar, is that we realize there is no such thing as consistency or stability outside of us, right? Even if Patrick and I sign a lease today for 5 years, you still can't count that as consistency or stability. The place could burn down. We could get evicted. It could get filled with termites. Like, there's so many different possibilities that we have no control over that could occur. I mean, literally in like car insurance, they have acts of God. I don't know if they've changed the name, but literally, like, one of the things that is insured is an act of God, which is like a deer, or, these things that are completely out of our control. But I think that's where you get to this point of like, that's really all I have control over, is listening to spirit, is leaning into the joy. but it drives other people crazy when they see that. And I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I was sharing these things, and they were like, but what about, all these? And I'm still early in my journey, and I felt myself being pulled back in, like, yeah, oh, yeah, maybe I should worry about this. Maybe this is more important. Maybe I should have you do this. And then and then I got off phone and felt like crap, first of all, because I was definitely pulled into the ego and started playing the rat race game of like, this matters and that matters. Until I brought myself back. And I think for me, when I shared at the beginning, the unwavering piece, I think that's why I bring that up, because I've run into that a lot. This way of truly rating your life and rating success is not even like adopted by many, if any, really. And so we're constantly up against that. And I think it's easy for the ego to pull us back in and make us be like, ooh, maybe we're not, maybe this isn't how it should be. Maybe we should get a house. Maybe I should like worry about how many people are watching this live stream. Maybe I should like cater it to what people want to watch, instead of like, hey, Tommy, Patrick, what do we want to talk about today? Let's talk about it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I've had similar things. I mean, no, you pretty much can't avoid it. If you ever want to do anything that you want to do in your own life, you're gonna have people, like, you can call them naysayers, or just people that would like to see you do something different. And I feel like either you or me run into this every other week when we're talking to certain people, and they're like, well, what about you doing this? And it's all just a reflection of like their perspective, like what they would like to either see in themselves, or what would make them feel comfortable with what you're doing, whatever that is. Like an easy example is go to college, get a good job, whatever. It's like, well, that's not my path. But if that's like your dad saying that, for instance, that's like because he wants to see you secure, which will make him feel secure. But that's not necessarily what's going to make you happy. And a lot of people, I think, have regrets when they follow other people's dreams and visions for them, or what they think they should be doing. So,
yeah. I mean, and the beautiful thing, Tommy, like you're in that. Like, I feel like I've been married, I've been divorced, I raised a child that's like almost the same age. Well, I think is older than Tommy, actually. And, so I have experienced that of I went to college, I did the things, I got the career, and I was like, what? Like, this is not happiness. And Tommy, like, it's been such a blessing to see you and to walk with you on this journey, and for you to be a part of this journey with us, because you're at that, like, that moment where other people could so easily influence what your definition of success is, including mainstream society, teachers, parents. But like, you've done so much deep inner work, like you're just really like, I'm gonna do what Tommy's gonna do. I mean, yeah, you get pulled in sometimes,
Right.
but it's like rocking everyone's world around you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like definitely definitely my friends, they don't see the TSA as like this, oh my God, that's such a great job, or like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. It's kind of like, why are you doing that? And one, because there's all this notion behind all the TCA are miserable, blah 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 blah. But it's also they don't want to. I guess if I would see it from their perspective, maybe they don't want to be in they don't want to be in that kind of work, or they don't want to be stuck being miserable, or so it's like a fear within themselves that they try to project, not in a malicious way, obviously, but I think it's funny because I think Kaylee's parents had the best reaction out of everybody, and they were very supportive, and they were very excited. And I thought that was really interesting and really cool to see like two different sides of a coin, where someone can be really congratulative and happy for you no matter what you're doing, and then the other side, which is questioning and trying to get you to do something different.
Yeah. But I think it's like interesting, like even if we don't talk about like the direct people, but like anybody tuning in, like if you think in your life when you prickle someone, so say you get that side of the coin where they're like, what? Like that's crazy, that's dumb, that's, you know, TSA people are miserable, like really tapping into their I know mind versus the person that's like, oh, congratulations. They're both using their I know mind. It's just, I think this is my interpretation. I think the person that was very congratulatory, they're secure. They're secure in what their definition of success in work is, and they're secure about what their journey looked like. Maybe at one point they weren't secure with it, but at this point in time, they're secure with their journey of their career. This person over here either is miserable in their career, they haven't secured what that's going to look like for them, they have doubts, you know, it's very there in the unknown. And by you doing something that is like widely seen as not okay threatens them because they haven't fully like landed on what their outcome is going to be. I think my experience of that is when I left my social work job. And you know, government, like I had a, you know, a public employee retirement account, I had benefits, all the government things. People that have worked for the government, which is hugely my family, they're all like government family, the FAA, were like, what are you doing? Like, that is the dumbest thing you could ever do. Other people that had worked corporate jobs and left corporate jobs or worked government jobs and left them and were happier than ever, like, yes, that is the best decision ever. Like, even if you are dead ass broke and you have no health insurance, you will be happier than you've ever been. And so it's not like one was more successful than the other. It's just one had a different I know mind and felt more secure in their own journey.
Yeah. I think it also, people could have had a successful career and then they're like, what are you doing? You don't want to do that. But then it's like, that could also show up as like, they had regrets. They didn't do what they really liked. And they ended up doing that they regretted doing, even though they came out monetarily ahead or whatever it is. But they didn't live their life the way they wanted to live it ultimately, or they still aren't secure in how they, you know, what their path. So.
And I guess like bringing it back to like really looking at it as we're not individuals, but one mind is like that. You got to see both sides of the coin, Tommy, and so did I, because both sides of those coins were active in the mind, right? Like I was experiencing the fear and the doubt and the what ifs, and I was also experiencing the like, yes, this is the right decision. And so it was just acted out on the screen. And I think I've been personally becoming more and more aware just in every moment when I feel discomfort. Like we were watching this show that was like crazy show about like a cult, and I felt lots of discomfort and irritation and anger and stuff. And I was able to look at it like, oh, this is like true fear within me, right? Like as we talk about religion and we have big miracle energy, like I've been trained that that's like a cult, that's bad, all these things. And so that was coming up within. And I think more and more I'm seeing that when I'm seeing people questioning me or making me feel uncomfortable, it's like, oh, that's a piece of the mind that's needing attention. That's a piece of the mind that I need to acknowledge and allow to bubble up and release because it's a narrative playing in the background. Yeah. I don't know. But I think it goes into special relationships. How we're going to talk about success in special relationships is like, I think Tommy too, at least for me, the people that were closer, like family, right? And we're going to exclude your dad because you have an amazing father who's like, Tommy, do what you love. So we're not going to use, like, I'm guessing he was like 100% supportive and like on board because that's just like how he's raised you. But for just like the average parent who's like, oh, my kid needs to go to college, my kid needs to do this, my kid needs to have a secure job, like for me, and build this retirement and good time, when all of a sudden it was gone, it felt like a piece of them, because I feel like in the special relationships, we begin to identify, I know as parents, like I've done this with my son, Jaden, that his success is my success. His failure is my failure. He's like an extension of me, which is interesting because we were like, oh, we're all one, right? So we're all extensions of each other because we're one. But that is at the like illusionary level, right? His persona is an extension of me, not the spirit being. So I think the reactions we get also depend on the specialness of the relationship we have with them. If they feel more threatened, so like if you have a really close friend or Patrick, right? If he was not in this process of unwinding the mind and I went and did something crazy, he would feel like that would reflect bad upon him if his girlfriend or significant partner is doing something negative, and take responsibility. Like, think if you go to the bar and your friend is acting like a crazy fool, you want to disown them because you feel like, oh my God, everybody's going to think I'm crazy because she's acting crazy. I don't know but does that, like, what do you guys think about that? Nothing? You think I'm completely crazy?
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead, Tom.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was still trying to come up with my thought. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think everyone's a mirror, right? And you can see everyone as in their actions or what they say as a reflection of your mind and where you're at, and how we tend to take a lot of things, or at least I did, personal, even though it wasn't personal at all, and it's not even personal towards them. It's just things you're working on yourself, and then it's like what you always say with the pink hair.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like when something prickles you and something upsets you, it's mostly because you associate with it. And you see that in yourself, and you don't want that. So you deflect it onto the other person or into a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The projecting out piece.
Right. Right. So I think that's a big part of how special relationships can play in the illusion, is that mirror of reflection. And if you're looking at it as a mirror, or if you're looking at it as that's a separate person judging me, or if that's a separate person trying to influence me in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's seeing the separation, and then it's like we make these degrees of separation, like, oh, Tommy's this kind of separate versus my mom's this kind of separate versus my kids this kind of separate, then we start to hierarchy them, we start to level them. And then depending on, because like if your random neighbor said they did something crazy, you'd be like, oh, that was stupid. Maybe even laugh at them, but it's not going to phase you because, like you said, the pink hair, there isn't a piece of you that believes it to be true for yourself. But if it's your kid, you're like, oh shit, like this is me in the paper. Everybody's going to read about it. Like they're going to think I'm a bad mom, and that it has really this definition on myself. I think, one of the beautiful things about at least the Course in Miracles is the like realization of us all being even, of everything just being like truly, is this linear? Truly linear, but like truly linear. There is no hierarchy. There's only hierarchy when you go into the holy instant, and that's not even hierarchy. It just happens to be, where it's, what's this called? Vertical, where it's vertical, and then we have like God and then Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and then us believing we're down here linear, but really like it all becomes one eventually. But I think that's the ultimate playing ground. That means that everyone is equal, meaning my son is not above or below me, and he is not his persona is not an extension of me. So if the neighbor doing something stupid doesn't impact me, then him doing something stupid shouldn't impact me. And the only reason why it does is like what you're saying, Tommy, because it's actually has nothing to do with him and everything to do with a story I'm holding on to with it. It's just easier to deflect it and project it out on it's him making me feel this way. It's him making me believe people are going to look at me a certain way because of his actions. No, you already believed a part of that to be true.
Yeah. I think we also tend to get into special relationships with people that are, it's like a narrative we're trying to heal, whatever that could be. I'm trying to give a good example. Like, let's just say that, yeah, like an easy one is like an abusive relationship. So you're always end up with an abusive partner, and you in that relationship, like this person was hitting me all the time, they're abusive, and then your next relationship, the same thing happens, and then you blame that person, and then it's like continues and continues until you heal that narrative, and all of a sudden the next partner you get into is not abusive. It had nothing to do with the partner you happen to choose. It had to do with the narrative that you were able to heal and forgive, and that stopped that pattern, and now you're in like a better relationship, or a more whatever next, maybe the next lesson is something else, or whatever that may be. But I think that's what special relationships are for to forgive, the forgiveness lessons that you need to heal.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is Tommy and I, before Patrick hopped on, we're talking about some pieces from the course, and one of them is how special relationships are created out of the ego for us to seek in others. So like give other people our happiness backpack, project out our anger on others. But then what you're bringing in, Patrick, is how Holy Spirit then uses those special relationships as opportunities for healing and the forgiveness and the ability. Because what I see like in an abusive relationship, like you're talking about, Patrick, is like if you continue to attract that, when we look at it from the ego level, the ego belief system, it's because it wants to constantly remind you that you must suffer and that you are unworthy of love. And so it's filling the ego narrative. But then if you start to unwind the mind and you start to really step into viewing things from the Holy Spirit and healing it, you see that that's not true. Like you are worthy. You do not need to sacrifice. You do not need to suffer. And that's what, in the Chosen video I did, Rama dies and Tom, I hope you watched already, Tommy.
I did.
Okay, good. Spoiler.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. And Thomas is like, heal her. Like he's all about the body and the need to have her be whole. And again, that's the ego level, but Jesus in that moment is reminding him like you are loved. And I think Jesus is trying to say like, this isn't love. What you are seeking in her body is not love. And I'm reminding you of the true unconditional love, which to me is like ego, right? We're seeing the ego. They want to get married. Like they're gonna get married. They did all these like illusionary things to get it approved. They had to ask Jesus for approval and all this stuff. And then of course, what does the ego do? Is like, haha, we're going to take her out. She's gone. And instead of playing into that, Jesus empathizes, but is also like, let's rise above the battlefield. Let's see that she's not actually this body.
And Jesus was even said, like, I love you, Thomas. And it wasn't Jesus, the ego Jesus, or the body of Jesus. It's like it was like the Holy Spirit saying, I love you. And that's what this is. That's the only thing that matters, not the ego, not the persona of Rama. Yeah. So.
Yeah. What were your thoughts? You saw that episode.
Yeah, well, I didn't, to be honest, I didn't really think about it that deeply until I watched the episode. I was like, it does get really deep when you think about it that way. But no, it's definitely exactly what it is Jesus. I mean, even you could see, which I think is done beautifully in The Chosen, is Jesus is all knowing, like Spirit is. So before that moment, you could see in his face that he knew it was going to happen. And he knew what he had to say to Thomas. And you could see him looking up at God and saying, or basically what his mind was probably saying was, do I have to do this?
Yeah.
Right. And then that's another reflection of, I guess, or that's another mirror of kind of following the guidance, even though it's not to your understanding.
Mm,
It's don't like the reason you could go ahead and heal Rama, or you can or follow like I guess the spirit,
yeah.
and the spirit has it to where he doesn't end up healing Rama. He heals other people, but not her, and that plays into a bigger picture of Thomas's journey.
Yeah.
For example, that he needs to go through to get to, I guess, following spirit.
Yeah. Well, you just said so many amazing things in there, Tommy. One being that the perfect representation of Jesus not feeding into the special relationship that he had with Thomas, that he had with Rama, and that we can still have these special relationships because we know he did. We know at the level of form, they were closer to him than, say, the random guy living down the street. They literally lived with him, they ate with him, all these things. So that would be considered a special relationship. But in the moment of trust, he saw through the special relationship to the truth and followed spirit instead of leaning into the ego and being like, oh, I can't see Thomas in pain, right? Think of your friend when you want to fix them, you want to make everything better for them. And could you imagine if everybody who was in the place of the ego had the powers like Jesus? We'd be healing people left and right because no one would want to sit in it, and no one would see the actual like bigger picture of it. So I think you said that perfectly. Like that's a direct example of sometimes we don't like at the level of form, we don't understand, we don't agree with the guidance of spirit, but it is such a bigger picture. And for Thomas, and I think all of the followers and even the people that aren't followers, because they're going to get word that Jesus didn't even resurrect his own follower. Like what the heck, and I think it kind of goes to, what's the guy's name, the cripple guy, the guy that has the limp or whatever, and he goes to Jesus and he's like, what, you haven't even healed me, how am I going to heal people? Like they're not
Right.
going to believe that. It's that same concept where he's like, how greater, like for you to be healing people and for you to be like, I don't need Jesus to heal me to believe in him. And I think that's really what was happening as well in that moment, is like, this is a deeper level that Jesus needs his disciples to understand, to really be able to see through the specialness and to truth. Otherwise they can't spread a message, right? If you're constant, like that's how the Bible got messed up. That's how every other piece of, history gets messed up. That's why there's a funny tale of the fish story where I tell Tommy I caught a fish this big. Tommy tells his friend it was this big. His friend tells his friend it was this big. And it gets like so much bigger because the ego is always involved. And when the ego's involved, the story never was truth to begin with. So it's constantly changing based on the perception of who's sharing it. Yeah. Our bird Red is here eating his blueberries. You can see him out the window. Yeah, so much with special. I think for me with special relationships, it's just like it's a constant, almost like what people would call grounding experience. But for me, when I think of grounding experience now, when I seek grounding, it's sinking grounding back into spirit, which is really a lofty grounding. It's kind of like a floating grounding. But like I even think about the loss of Patrick, or, I have friends that come and go based on where I'm at and where they're at, when you're really sharing a message that that's pretty polarizing. Not everybody wants to be your friend, and they want to be your friend until their ego gets in the way and they're like, no more. But those specialness are moments of me realizing, like, I immediately always try to make it about me, right? Like, oh, if Patrick's mad, what did I do wrong? Or this person doesn't want to be my friend anymore. What did I do wrong? And yeah, there's times that maybe I did something out of spite, out of fear, which then I can own because it came from the ego. But a lot of times it's like, this isn't about you, right? Like, that's you trying to make this special, and that it was about you to begin with. And this is a part of the journey, and that's where they need to go. That's, you know, Patrick needs to be sitting in this right now because he needs to release it. And it's not about you trying to fix it. But I think in specialness, we're always trying to make it about us, which means either like fixing it or taking ownership or, and you know, I have a feeling in The Chosen, as we move forward in the next, in the next episode, Thomas was like, why me? Like, you know, that questioning of like, what did I do wrong? Why were we the ones chosen? So it's about him now. It's about him and this being punishment, which I'm sure we'll see in the crucifixion many episodes later as well.
Yeah. We can take it down a notch.
Take it down.
Take it down.
Well, like specialness isn't just, you know, your partner or your family members, but it could be like an object. Like I have a plant that I consider I have a special relationship with the plant. We have a special relationship with
Watch this and be like, whatever.
the bird.
Yeah,
Our
the bird, our bird Red.
But it's like pretty much it could be any object in
Anything
really. So
it's the moment that it has a significant meaning more than something else to you, I think, is when it becomes special. And that like the loss of it, or like it could impact you. Not having it impacts your decisions.
Right.
Yeah, like my car. Like
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking about my car.
your car. Let's hear about your car, Tommy. Let's hear, like, what's up with your car?
No, well, I love my car.
See? Special. No, just kidding.
No, I've always like I've always had. I feel like I've always had a relationship to my car, and Kaylee's always like, "No, you're weird. Why? It's just a hunk of metal. It doesn't." But I'm like, "No, it's more than that. It like when you're driving, it's not like you driving. It's like you're driving with the car, not you driving the car. It's like I feel like I have a spiritual connection with the car, even though it's a hunk of metal and there's no spirit or life to it or whatever you want to say. But yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it's the meaning you give it, right? So my car video, you already watched it, Tommy, but it's going to come out on YouTube later this week if anyone's tuning in. I sold my car, and it's the first time I haven't had a car since I was 16. And the amount of stories and safety and security that was tied to that car, or any of the cars, right? Like it was owning a car in general, because of course I've filtered through cars. But it started out when I was 16 with my Chevy Beretta, eggplant purple, gold trim. Oh my God, that was a sweet ass car. But it was always my safe space. I moved out with my mom. I couch surfed for a period of time, then landed at a friend's house, but I never felt secure. So in my car is where like my most important things were. My car was always my way to run. I was a runner. And so Patrick brought up me selling my car almost 2 years ago. And I was like, because I still was in that runner mentality and still in that, like, is this going to be like forever type thing, right? Because I had to think ahead. And it's not that now. I mean, yes, I believe Patrick and I will be together till we die, but I don't put weight on it. So I didn't rid myself of my car because I believe we're going to be together forever. I rid myself of my car because I'm living more and more in the present moment. And in the present moment, I no longer run. I no longer need the safety and security because I know I will never find it in the illusion. So even though I thought my car was this false sense of safety and security. It never actually was, right? At any moment it could break, it could be taken from me, it could be, you know, all these different things. It just never happened that way. But I think like many people have special relationships with their car because they see it as a freedom vessel. Like, really, I mean, that's what gets you from point A to point B, or what we believe is the only option to get us there. And I think even like deeper than money, I would say like special relationship with money is crazy. I would say that's maybe one of the biggest special relationships out there that's like universal and not an actual walking, talking human being. And literally like, wow, my mind just was like, yes, money, because divorce rates, like I think when you look at the statistics, like the number one reason why people get divorced is because of money.
Yeah.
Like disagreements and stuff. So like we have created this fake thing, which we can all agree it's fake. I mean, you don't have to agree we're an illusion to agree that randomly one day a man or woman, whatever, I don't care, or dog was like, I'm going to make money and that's what we're going to use as exchange. So obviously it was fake. And then now we rank it above even the connection with others. Wow. Yeah. And I think that goes into success. How often do you think the special relationship with money is what defines someone's success?
I think almost all the time, right? I think there are different levels to success, like parental or relationship wise, but I think always or almost always there's always money tied into it somewhere.
Yes.
Like to provide for your children or to provide for your partner or to help your partner in whatever way financially.
Yeah.
And in goals too, and in career, it's the main focal point is probably money.
Yeah.
You want to get when you're young, it's always like go to college, get a good job. And then what's defined as a good job, the first thing is money. It's not how it makes you feel or
Yeah.
what it actually is or what you're providing. It's how much money are you making?
Yeah. Well, and even like I think of like social work, because I always say, oh, if you went into school to be a social worker, like it's not about the money, it's about helping people. But I mean, yes, I agree with that. But also you're making money while you're helping people, right? So you want to help people and then you're like, but I have to make money, so I need a degree. And oftentimes if you get into like a conversation with people who work in those professions that are paid low, they usually have really good benefits. So then the discussion is not about the actual cash in hand coming home, but it's like, oh, they meet my retirement by this much and I have amazing health insurance and, you know, I get this much PTO, plus we get 50 vacations a year and it's ever growing, right? We just added another federal holiday. So, but you're right. It's always based on something tied to money. And that's probably why when we say, oh, we just do what brings us joy, people are like, joy isn't going to buy you anything.
Right. Right. No, I have this conversation with Kaylee a lot where it's like, but I want to live a good life, right? But I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to travel. And you can't do that if you don't have money.
For sure.
But it's like you kind of don't, but it's to the standard.
Yes.
I feel like it all just ties into standard and what you want, because someone can travel on $50 and they can have way different experiences but have more fun while you're spending thousands of dollars on one trip.
Yes, I think standards is tied in so much to success too. When we're looking at like illusionary level success, because it's interesting, we keep finding these things tied into success, which reiterates how complicated the ego makes everything, because at least all of our responses of like listening to spirit, living in love, like there isn't all these underlying hidden agendas that make us decide that, other than to be happy, to have a joyous life. But then we unpack and it's like all these other things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also like following spirit, it knows finances exist, but it doesn't care the way you care, if that makes sense. Like some of the decisions I've made, they don't make sense financially, but they make sense in spirit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be big finances either. It could be as simple as give this homeless man whatever amount of money, or take this amount of money out of the bank in cash.
Mhm.
And then it's interesting to see how that plays in later in that bigger picture. And
Yeah.
that's why I like to see those as like my story with the valet driver. Like those are little winks. You follow spirit, it all connects itself. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah. I think we're kind of leaning into that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like with
I mean, every day we're praying for guidance for the next, like next day, next week, next like few months, what we should be doing next as far as mostly, mainly living, I guess, like what location or,
yeah.
and even, like interactions, people.
The car selling was a big
Yeah, the
lean in.
car. And we're getting like obvious clues too. It's kind of crazy, like almost too many clues, like
Yeah.
of what we should be doing. So, which is good, but we're just keeping an open mind, and at least we know now. We know some of what we need to be doing or not doing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think it's too for us. I mean, I don't know. It's the car is one of the big pieces. Like there was discussion about getting rid of the car and it was feeling aligned. And then all of a sudden, like all these things came in about like the apartment building and just charging more money. So we're like, well, financially, this doesn't make sense. And so we got rid of the car. And like this just came to me when Patrick is talking. So we thought it was like this good financial move, but I also felt like Spirit's preparing us for like the next leg. Like we're not going to need this car, like starting to clear things out. And then all of a sudden it's costing like way more than ever. Like where all these like charges are coming left and right of like me needing to rent a car and pay for parking and stuff. So I think for me, like it's reminders that we no longer want or no longer are meant to be in this location. But for me, I think it's Spirit being like, that really wasn't a financial
yeah.
decision.
Right.
Remember,
Yeah.
hold yourself, right? Because like my ego mind wants to go, woo, we're saving so much money. Like, look at, I can put this money into savings or, blah, blah, blah. We can have it for travel. And then the Spirit's like, no,
And go somewhere else. It's all the
that's
same.
not what it was for. Gone, be gone. That's not what it was for at all.
Right.
And I think that goes into like the I know mind of believing we know why anything happens, because it really doesn't matter in the end. So like, oh, we felt called to get rid of the car, but it's like this special relationship in us wants us to have a ego reason for it to make sense. So it
Right.
was like, oh, financially it makes sense. But as you can see, like with the valet and the other random crap, the best things occur when you allow it to not make sense, because it actually doesn't make sense. You're just
No,
trying
it
to
doesn't.
make it make sense.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody have any last minute things? I feel like we've been kind of all over the board today.
And I think with the guidance, you mentioned prayer, Patrick, and it goes into I believe it was episode 4 of The Chosen, right? Was the newest one that just came out?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where um James and John, the two brothers, they were asking to sit next to Jesus in the kingdom of heaven, and then they mentioned what he said on the Sermon on the Mount, and it goes into when you ask Spirit and you don't necessarily receive that thing specifically. It's not saying, hey, ask for this, you get whatever you want when you ask spirit. It's when you ask for guidance, you receive the guidance. Like when you knock on the door of guidance, you get the guidance. And it's your decision whether you want to follow through and you want to follow the guidance, or you just want to say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Let me go back to doing my own thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that it was such a powerful spot because of how upset Jesus got, and how I think it really shows the level differences and the different understanding that Jesus is trying to get his disciples to understand. And I think ultimately it came down to, you have no clue what will bring you happiness. You have no clue what you are asking for when you are asking for specifics. And that's what he made clear. He's like, you don't want that. Like, you want to be like spit on and all these different things that Jesus is about to enter into. And everybody's like, right. And then, Simon chimes in, because this is in the specialness piece of like him having his special name. And you could just see the like disgust on Jesus's face of like, really, this is where my disciples are? And he was like, you're acting like the Gentiles, like, and goes off on them. Which I told Patrick that this morning. He said something that was very like illusionary, or like,
Acting like a Gentile.
Gentiles. He's like, what are you, Jewish now? Oh my gosh. This is what goes on at our house. So yeah, I love that. And The Chosen is just so beautiful. Such a beautiful opportunity to really unpack and look at things like in the like real time versus just using all of our imaginations, I guess.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And trying to come together. Well, beautiful. That was, I guess, success, special relationships, The Chosen, any other random crap that came up about. So I'm going to cut off the live stream. So if you're tuning in live, thank you so much for tuning in and going on this journey with us. If you would like to be a part of these conversations, hop on to Big Miracle Energy Patreon. The link is in the description. We would love for you to join the Right-Minded Thinker and just have these beautiful, deep randomness conversations with us, one live a month and one privately on Zoom. But thank you so much for tuning